Today we'll be going over the feiyutech Ak4000 gimbal, and I'm going to show you guys how it fits in with all the rest of the gimbals that are out there on the market now. Now, feiyutech did send me this gimbal over for review, so as always, I'm not going to go tell you to buy something that I didn't buy, so I'm just going to go over the features and show what it brings to the table. Now, there are some very unique things about this gimbal, and there are some things that I don't quite like about this gimbal, so I'm going to cover the basics and then we're going to get into some of the test footage. Let's start with what comes in the box. In the included styrofoam carrying case, you get the detachable carrying handle with the built-in rear customizable button and the focus wheel, the gimbal head itself, which has a mounting hole built into the side, the mounting plate with a built-in riser, the top bracket, which is something that I haven't really seen other gimbals include in the box. It includes the metal tripod feet, and it also has a carbon fiber extension pole if you need to extend the handle. And of course, it comes with the batteries, the charger, and all the other little screws and cables that you need to connect to your camera. This gimbal weighs just a little bit over 3 pounds and is smaller than the Ronin S and the Moza Air 2. Also, even though this gimbal is smaller, it can still carry almost 9 pounds of weight, so it's smaller than the other gimbals and lighter, and it also doesn't sacrifice on build quality or weight capacity. The first thing I realized when I picked the gimbal up was how comfortable the rubber grip is on the handle. It doesn't quite feel like the rubber on the Ronin S. It's much softer and it feels really comfortable in the hand. The controls are nicely laid out, and the thumbstick is more of a pad, so your thumb rests comfortably on top of it versus the sticks that are found on like the Ronin S and the Moza Air 2. That of course brings us to one of the biggest differences of this gimbal, and that's the fact that it has a touchscreen. Having the touchscreen makes everything easy to see, and it's easy to navigate through the menus because you could just swipe around and select the things that you want to select. This gimbal does have the ability to connect to your camera via Wi-Fi, so for the cameras that have that, you can select your camera settings and you can stop recording, take pictures, just about anything that you can do on the back of your camera through the gimbal. Now, within the menu system, you can set up things like motion time lapses. You can change the different following modes of the gimbal, which does include an all follow mode, which lets you get more steady cam or glide cam style shots with the gimbal because you can move on all axes. This gimbal doesn't, however, have inception mode, so you can't do those 360 rolls with this gimbal if that's something that you're looking for. Now, of course, the dial on the side can control a follow focus motor if you attach one, and it can also control the axis of the gimbal, and you can just select it on the touchscreen which axis you want the dial to control. If you connect the feiyutech app to the gimbal, then you can use the phone's camera to do things like active track. So once the app is open on the phone, you can highlight the subject that you want the camera to track, and the gimbal will move around to keep that subject within the frame. Now, the only thing is you have to mount the phone onto the camera that's on the gimbal so you can use this feature, and it's probably something that I wouldn't use, but you have the option to use it if you choose. Now, personally, my favorite thing about this gimbal and what makes it stand out to me is that you can connect this gimbal to a circle grip. Now, this isn't a circle grip that you would attach to, let's say, any other gimbal. This circle grip actually integrates with the gimbal. So once you take the gimbal apart, you can take those same pieces and use them for the circle grip. So you have full control of the gimbal like you normally would in the circle grip configuration without losing any functionality. And since it's integrated together, the package stays small and light and compact. The circle grip is made of full carbon fiber, so it doesn't really add much weight, and it gives you a ton of flexibility since you have the whole cage around the gimbal. Now, this makes carrying around the gimbal and mounting things to the gimbal way easier than it would if it was in the normal configuration. Another thing that I like when it's in the circle grip, the camera is pretty centered within the ring, so it makes it real easy to get those down low shots without having to go into an underslung mode. So besides being one of the cheapest single-handed gimbals on the market that holds this much weight, the circle grip is probably the main thing that will have me interested in getting this gimbal. Now that we got all of that out of the way, let's take a look at some of the footage I was able to get with this setup. And now that you've seen the footage, you can make your own decisions on how that looked to you. Now, there's a lot of great things about this gimbal, but the main thing that I hate is the fact that I cannot control the sensitivity of the gimbal. There are 3 built-in sensitivity modes for the gimbal, and if none of those 3 work for you, then you're pretty much out of luck. You have to stick with the ones that they have built into the gimbal. Now, every other gimbal, I always say that the smoothness is really not a selling point for me because they pretty much all let you dial in the gimbal how you want it to operate. And the biggest thing to me is how easy it is for me to dial in those settings. Some gimbals, you have to dig through a lot of menus to get to the settings. Some gimbals give you the ability to do everything really quickly. So that's more of a selling point to me. But with this gimbal, it doesn't even give you the option to manually set the sensitivity. So that's worse than having to dig through the menus because I have no control over it. I have to stick with the preset modes. And if I'm in a situation where those modes won't work, then there's nothing I can do about it. Now, of those 3 settings, I pretty much always leave it in smooth mode because the other 2 settings are way too responsive for the way I use the gimbal. My only other complaints with this gimbal would probably be that it doesn't have a double quick release plate, and that's really nice when you want to take the camera on and off the gimbal real quickly without having to rebalance it, and it doesn't really have that. You kind of have to remember the position that you slid the plate in last time to get your balance back. And I also wish it had locking arms. Once you have a gimbal that does have locking arms and it's not flapping around on you when you're trying to balance the gimbal or you're trying to transport the gimbal, you really see how handy that comes in when you're using it in real life. Now, the good news is feiyutech does have an Ak4000, which pretty much solved every single issue that I had with this gimbal. You can manually adjust the sensitivity, it has locking arms, it has a double quick release plate, you can do the 360 roll. Everything that I had a problem with this gimbal was solved with the Ak4000. So if you have a little more room in your budget and you can afford to get the Ak4000, that would probably be even better. But I think for the majority of people who are just using the gimbal to get smooth shots, the Ak4000 is probably more than enough than they'll ever need. All in all, I say this is a pretty well built gimbal for a very affordable price that gives you a lot of bang for your buck. It's a very good gimbal with a few things that's keeping it from being a great gimbal. But like I said, those things were addressed with the Ak4000. So you can pretty much look at this video and determine where it fits in for you. As always, I hope this video was helpful. Please give me a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I will see you guys next time.